So in this video, I'm going to talk about planar analysis, which basically has to do with, when you're drawing the figure, even though it's really organic, you do have to kind of think of it, you have to think of it obviously as a three-dimensional shape, but you also have to think of it, in some ways a bit geometric, okay? So, because what it's doing is it's light is hitting the surface, and so some parts are going to be obviously darker because they get less light, and then some parts are going to be a lot brighter because they're getting more light. And what that does is that you'll really, if you start thinking of it as a geometric form, you kind of start with that foundation there. What ends up happening is that you're going to find that it's a lot easier to block in your major masses of shadows and get all your mass darks in. So I started drawing a cylinder there, but we'll draw a cube. So, or sort of a cube. We'll draw more of a geometric, or more of a rectangular type of cube here. So let's get this, and there, and then we'll go with that. Okay, so let's pretend we got our light coming in here, and I'll go ahead and draw this little cylinder in too. And so the reason I'm drawing these is because if you think in terms of simple shapes, because that's what you'll find is if you get good at drawing simple forms, the rest of it's really not so bad. You're applying the same exact concepts to something that's much more complicated. So yeah, if the light's coming in from this direction, and I'm not going to be too specific about exactly the angle, but we'll just kind of, make it up here. Well, obviously what's going to happen is you're going to have this whole area here that's more in shadow. Okay. And, if the light's coming from up a little bit higher, then maybe I'll get a little bit more shadow here. But again, not a ton. It's there's obviously one area with more and then kind of one with less and so on and so on. So if you translate that to a cylinder, again, just, sort of a generic light, then what happens is, there's sort of the half. And so, of course, the cylinder is kind of like the shape of the pencil here, and even you can see, the lights come in actually from the left side, and then the right side of the pencil is a little bit more in shadow. So it is more of a, form that goes like this. So it's going to behave a little bit differently there than it will be on, say, a geometric form. Kind of like this thing here, and you can see sort of the same exact thing happening there, okay? So when you're dealing with drawing the figure, you kind of have to think of it the same way. So let's see, say we got somebody's shoulder here, okay, and then, there's the upper part of the arm. And so that's why a lot of times I like thinking of it a bit more as like basic shapes. So, and you'll find you don't end up drawing it as like these really simple basic shapes the whole time that you're drawing it, but just for you to kind of consider what's happening there. And actually, well, I don't know, I'll make this a little more like that, and then, I don't know, let's just put hands here. I'm not going to draw the hands. So the same thing, if we have light kind of beaming down from this side, then yeah, there's this whole half of it that's just kind of more in the dark. And again, I can start erasing some of these things here. And sort of like right there on the upper part of the arm, but again, kind of by the bicep. That's more in shadow. Again, if the light's still beaming this way, so this is the, say this ends up being the forearm, their arm's kind of bent. Then, again, you'll probably have at least the lower half of this. That's more in shadow, okay? And like I said, what ends up happening is that, just with a real basic shape like that, we get a real sense of light. It says we'll try kind of a generic looking leg here. Someone with giant calf muscles. Let's see, I don't know, I'm probably a bit off on the proportions here, but that's okay. Let's put some little toes here. I know, that's kind of maybe not the best foot I've ever drawn. Let's just sit close enough for this. But again, if our light's beaming in from this direction, you'll get the tibia bone there. And so, again, just to get a good foundation and a good start, if I think of it as, having just these simple shadows going on here, when you start with something like that, again, it already gives you a good foundation. And all I'm really doing is kind of replicating sort of what I'm seeing there. And again, depending on the angle of the light, like if we think of this a little more, kind of like that cube I have up there, that rectangular cube, then, it's kind of like thinking of it like that, more how it's turned. There's an area that's the side and an area that's the front. And again, if you think of it more like a cylinder, it's the exact same idea. Okay, and this is something that you can really apply to basically any part of the figure. So like if you're drawing a head, you're working on a portrait, and then you gotta, draw like a 3/4 view, let's say. So I'll put my line, so it helps me know which direction they're looking, and so say that's the eyes, the nose, that's where the mouth is. Okay, and so then when you're drawing the head, you want to think of it a bit, sort of like this geometric form. That, here's the front. And so same thing, if we go to that same idea that the light's coming from the left side, then, even if we mark things off, like there's the, where the eyes are, there's the center of the face. Actually, we'll put it more like this, match one up here. The nose, the mouth, just as a real basic idea that, the face would be in shadow. So you got to remember that with a head, there's a front part, and then right there's that little bone coming off the forehead, and we have the zygomatic bone in there, and and the cheekbones. That as you start, trying to make this into a face, maybe there's more light on this side, and so what ends up happening is the face is a little more dim. And again, I'm really oversimplifying here, because really, your eye sockets, like that'll be darker, because your eyeballs are pushed back into the sockets, and and then under the nose, of course, there's more shadow there because your nose comes out, and a little spot below your mouth where it kind of goes back in space. So obviously there's more subtleties to it than that, but if you think of it as just a light there, then this is going to get less light, and that's going to be more, and sort of like just drawing a simple cube. So we'll do a smaller version here. And let's say the same thing. Maybe the light's coming down from this side now, or maybe more from the front, let's say. So then definitely you're going to have more more shadow on that side. And by just doing something like that, and again, if you start kind of matching the contours where the cheek, your cheeks, the cheekbone, and all that go out, then that's what it's going to look like. And so literally all I did was just kind of block in part of it, and it already feels a lot more three-dimensional. And like I said, then once you get in there and you're doing, kind of blocking in the eye sockets, it's really, you can almost even simplify it down to that. And then the nose, and it's sort of like the top plane, and especially if the light's beaming in from this side, you're going to see a little more shadow on the one side of the nose. Okay, and in the mouth, and again, especially if you're kind of drawing it superhero style, you're going to make the face very chiseled, but your chin most people's chins tend to kind of push forward, and so there is a little bit of a, kind of a little dark spot under the mouth there. And then since the mouth is sort of like this little sphere, or sometimes I think of it as a cylinder, like a little cylinder. And it's a little more round, so of course it rounds out, and the shadow will be a lot more gradual as it changes. But me just sort of thinking of the head, even though you saw me draw a circle and then kind of an oval to get the shape in, if I think of it a little more like a cube, just to start, just that basic set of first tones that I put down, it's just a lot easier to draw that. Okay, and like I said, it works with anything. Like, you've got a leg, the upper part of the leg. I know this is towards the bottom of the page here, but there's the knee, and we're getting someone's leg. So yeah, if we have the light beaming down from this side, and see, I didn't go super simple with the shape. I didn't really do, like a cylinder. But especially when you're drawing from a model, just really look and see where's the light coming from, what's in shadow, and then what's not. And so, kind of just blocking in that real simple mass, and doing that everywhere on the figure. It's going to help you a lot. Because then, then all of a sudden you can be like, all right, there's probably more of a core shadow here. Maybe there's a little more reflected light that I need to kind of pull back out, and, the knee's not that outlined and chiseled as I got it there, and maybe this part even less light, so it's the shadows are going to change there. And again, there'll be other variations in here that happen as you're drawing. So you, of course, can build upon that basic idea, but it's a good, quick way to just get a lot of information in quickly without really having to do that much. And you'll find that it already starts to look a lot more three-dimensional, and in some ways kind of realistic, because really what you're doing is just some things are closer, some things are further away, and of course, like, some things are aimed towards the light and some things are not. So, even though we use form and shape and line and, all these things, but essentially what you're really doing is you're just drawing light. Anytime you draw anything, that's what you're doing, is you're drawing light. And so, it's just one of those things that if you keep that in mind the whole drawing and you start it that way, you're going to be a lot more successful, and it helps you actually simplify what you're looking at, or even if you're drawing from your head, it helps you simplify what you're trying to put down on the page.